We stand on the threshold of a revolution capable of altering the very concept of human experience. The metaverse is not merely a new technology, but an entire parallel world where the boundaries between real and virtual blur with each passing day. What happens to our brain when we wander through digital landscapes for hours? How does our perception change when the body is in a chair, but consciousness is in boundless virtual expanses? These questions are no longer the stuff of science fiction. Millions of people spend a significant part of their lives daily in digital worlds, and their number is growing exponentially. Neuroscientists are sounding the alarm and simultaneously marveling at the brain's amazing ability to adapt to a new reality. We are investigating how new neural connections form when immersed in the metaverse, what risks addiction to virtual worlds poses, and how to maintain mental balance in an era of digital transformation of consciousness. Our brain is an amazing tool for adaptation, capable of reorganizing itself under new conditions. This ability, known as neuroplasticity, becomes key in the era of the metaverse. As we immerse ourselves in virtual worlds, our brain begins to form entirely new neural connections, adjusting to digital reality. Studies show that regular interaction with three-dimensional virtual spaces activates the same brain regions responsible for spatial navigation in the physical world. But something amazing happens. These regions begin to work differently, creating peculiar cognitive maps of virtual territories. Scientists from Stanford University have found that people who spend several hours a week in the metaverse demonstrate improved visuospatial skills. Their brain literally learns to exist in two realities simultaneously. Changes in older adults are particularly impressive. Virtual reality becomes a kind of simulator for cognitive functions. Participants in the experiment over 65 years old showed significant improvements in memory and reaction speed after 3 months of regular sessions in an adapted metaverse. Our brain does not just adapt to a new environment, it thrives in it, using virtual experience to strengthen real neural networks. Virtual worlds of the metaverse affect our brains more deeply than we may realize. At its core lies an ancient reward system, a complex neural mechanism that evolved to motivate survival and reproduction. When we achieve goals in the virtual world, our brain responds by releasing dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and motivation. Metaverse developers masterfully exploit these biological mechanisms, creating systems of achievements, virtual rewards, and social recognition. Every new level, every virtual trophy, every like from a digital friend, these are microdoses of dopamine, making us come back again and again. Research shows that the brain does not always distinguish between real and virtual achievements. For neural circuits, winning a virtual competition activates the same pleasure centers as success in real life. However, virtual rewards often come faster, easier, and in a more predictable manner. This creates the danger of strong addiction. The brain begins to prefer easily accessible virtual rewards over complex and delayed real-world achievements. Gradually, tolerance develops, requiring more and more time in the metaverse to achieve the same level of pleasure. Neuroscientists note that prolonged immersion in virtual worlds can lead to desensitization of dopamine receptors, resulting in a reduced sensitivity to natural sources of pleasure in the real world. When we enter the metaverse, we don't just connect to servers, we immerse ourselves in a new social dimension. Avatars become our digital bodies, through which we communicate, express emotions, and build relationships. But what happens to our social skills in this parallel world? Research paints a dual picture. On the one hand, the metaverse opens up unprecedented opportunities for people with social anxiety. The virtual mask of an avatar lowers the psychological barrier, allowing for freer expression of thoughts and feelings. People who struggle with real-life communication often flourish in virtual communities. Neuroimaging of the brains of such users shows reduced activity in the amygdala, the center of fear and anxiety, during virtual social interactions compared to real ones. However, there is also a downside. Communication through avatars deprives us of a significant portion of non-verbal cues, micro-expressions, subtle changes in posture, involuntary gestures. These elements are critically important for developing empathy and emotional intelligence. Children and adolescents who primarily develop social skills in the metaverse demonstrate a reduced ability to read emotions in real-life interactions. Virtual communities in the metaverse are formed on different principles than real ones. Here, people unite around common interests and values, rather than geographical proximity or social status. This creates unique psychological phenomena, deep attachment to virtual groups, and the blur of boundaries between digital and real identity. The boundary between you and your avatar sometimes becomes thinner than we are willing to admit. The phenomenon of psychological transference of consciousness into a virtual body is not just a theoretical concept, but a reality faced by millions of metaverse users. Our brain possesses an amazing ability to accept a virtual body as its own. This effect, known as the embodiment illusion, arises after just a few minutes of immersion. Neurophysiologists from the University of Barcelona have recorded that when controlling an avatar, the same neural circuits that are responsible for the perception of our physical body are activated. For the brain, the virtual body becomes a real extension of ourselves. This phenomenon is particularly pronounced when users spend several hours daily in the metaverse. They begin to transfer the characteristics of their avatars into real life. Their gestures, manner of speech, and even self-perception change. One participant in the study admitted, "Sometimes I catch myself thinking that in reality I cannot walk through a wall or teleport, although my virtual version does this constantly." Such blurring of boundaries between realities can lead to dissociative states, a psychological phenomenon in which a person feels alienated from their own body or personality. To maintain healthy boundaries, psychologists recommend conscious rituals for entering and exiting the metaverse, regular breaks, and grounding practices in physical reality. Virtual worlds not only change our perception of reality, but also form specific cognitive biases. Our brain, not evolutionarily adapted to constant switching between worlds, creates unique mental traps. One of the most common is the confirmation bias effect. Metaverse algorithms adjusting to our preferences create an ideally comfortable information bubble. We only see what we want to see, and our beliefs are strengthened without critical reflection. Researchers from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology found that after 3 months of regular immersion in personalized virtual spaces, participants demonstrated significantly more rigid views on controversial issues. An equally serious distortion is the disruption of time perception. 80% of surveyed metaverse users admitted that they regularly lose track of time in the virtual world. Neurophysiological measurements show that the brain in a state of immersion switches to a special mode of operation in which internal clocks slow down. 3 hours in the metaverse are subjectively perceived as 1. This explains why it is so difficult to exit virtual space on time. A particular danger is the illusion of control, a cognitive bias in which a person overestimates their ability to influence events. In the metaverse, where many processes are indeed subject to our will, this illusion is greatly amplified and can be transferred to the real world. What happens to our brain during prolonged immersion in the metaverse? Recent studies by neurophysiologists provide alarming answers. Scientists from the University of California, who studied volunteers after 4-hour sessions in virtual reality, found significant changes in brain activity. Electroencephalograms showed an increase in beta waves and a decrease in alpha rhythms, a pattern characteristic of a state of heightened arousal and impaired relaxation. Even 2 hours after exiting the metaverse, the brain continued to operate in a mode of heightened activity, which made falling asleep difficult and reduced sleep quality. Changes in circadian rhythms are of particular concern. The bright light of VR devices, especially in the blue spectrum, suppresses the production of melatonin, a hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle. In people who regularly use the metaverse in the evening, a shift in circadian rhythms by 2 to 3 hours is observed. Physiological markers of excessive immersion also include increased levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, increased heart rate, and elevated blood pressure. The phenomenon of meta-headache deserves special attention, a specific discomfort that arises after long sessions in virtual reality. Neuroimaging reveals a temporary disruption of blood flow in the occipital and temporal lobes of the brain in users experiencing this symptom. Metaverse addiction forms according to the same neurobiological principles as other behavioral addictions, but it has its unique characteristics. At its core lies a classic mechanism: constant stimulation of the brain's reward system, followed by the depletion of dopamine receptors. But the metaverse adds a new level of complexity. It becomes not just a source of pleasure, but an alternative reality. The first sign of developing addiction is growing tolerance. The user requires more and more time in the virtual world to receive the same emotional response. 2 hours turn into 4, 4 into 8. Simultaneously, withdrawal syndrome develops, irritability, anxiety, and even physical discomfort when unable to enter the metaverse. A particularly alarming signal is continued use despite clear negative consequences: sleep problems, neglect of work or studies, conflicts with loved ones. Unlike social media addiction, metaverse addiction is often accompanied by the phenomenon of dissociative identification. The person begins to perceive their avatar as a more real version of themselves. For self-diagnosis, experts recommend a simple test. Try to spend a week without immersing yourself in the metaverse. If this thought causes strong anxiety or seems impossible to achieve, it is a serious reason to consider professional consultation. The developing brains of children and adolescents are particularly vulnerable to the influence of the metaverse. Unlike adults, whose personalities are already formed, the younger generation is in the process of self-discovery. Virtual worlds become for them not just entertainment, but a space for active identity formation. Neurobiological research shows that the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making and impulse control, only fully matures by the age of 25. This is why adolescents demonstrate increased susceptibility to virtual stimuli and social approval in the metaverse. For them, virtual popularity can become more important than real achievements. Of particular concern is the metaverse's impact on emotional regulation. During the critical period of emotional intelligence development, children may become accustomed to the simplified emotional reactions of avatars, which makes it difficult to recognize complex feelings in real life. Effective parental control strategies involve guidance, not prohibitions. Joint exploration of virtual worlds, discussing what has been seen and experienced, helps children develop critical thinking. Digital literacy is becoming no less important a skill than traditional literacy. Parents must teach children to recognize manipulation, protect personal data, and establish healthy boundaries between the virtual and real worlds. Virtual worlds open up amazing opportunities, not only for entertainment, but also for healing. The therapeutic potential of the metaverse is becoming one of the most promising areas of modern psychology and neurorehabilitation. Virtual exposure therapy has revolutionized the treatment of phobias. Patients with aerophobia can experience a full-fledged virtual flight while in the safe environment of a therapist's office. The system gradually increases the intensity of stimuli, allowing the brain to adapt to a frightening situation without traumatic stress. The results are impressive. 80% of patients show a significant reduction in symptoms after 10 sessions. The metaverse is particularly effective in treating post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans. Recreating combat conditions in a controlled virtual environment allows for the processing of traumatic memories, integrating them into the overall experience. For people with disabilities, virtual worlds become a space of freedom and development. Patients with lower limb paralysis, by controlling fully moving avatars, activate mirror neurons, which contributes to neuroplastic reorganization of the motor cortex. This is not just a psychological effect. Studies record real physiological changes that accelerate the recovery of motor functions. In a world where the virtual and real intertwine ever more closely, caring for our cognitive health becomes not a luxury, but a necessity. Digital brain hygiene is a set of conscious practices that allow us to maintain clarity of thought and emotional balance when interacting with the metaverse. The first rule of safe immersion is time limits. Neurophysiologists recommend the 20-minute rule. After every 20 minutes in the virtual world, take a 5-minute break for the real world. This allows the brain to switch gears and prevents sensory system overload. Equally important is the ritual of entry and exit, simple actions that mark the transition between realities. Before immersing yourself in the metaverse, take a few deep breaths. After exiting, drink a glass of water, walk barefoot on the floor, or do a simple physical exercise. These rituals help the brain clearly delineate the experiences of different realities. Establish technological barriers. Use shutdown timers and applications that block access to the metaverse at certain hours. Create digital detox days, periods of complete abstinence from virtual worlds. Start with 1 day a week, gradually increasing the duration. These breaks allow the dopamine system to recover and reduce the risk of addiction formation. Practice mindful presence in the real world. Pay attention to physical sensations, smells, and sounds around you. This strengthens the neural connections responsible for perceiving physical reality. Standing at the crossroads of technological progress and human nature, we must acknowledge the metaverse is not just an insurers, but a new chapter in human history. Our journey through the neurobiological aspects of virtual worlds has revealed the duality of this phenomenon. Like fire, the metaverse can warm and create, but it can also burn the unwary. The key question is not to use or not to use, but how to use wisely. A future where biological and digital worlds coexist in harmony demands a conscious approach from us. We must learn to swim in digital oceans without losing touch with the shores of reality. Technological development is inevitable, but the direction of this development is in our hands. The priority must be the creation of ethical, virtual spaces that respect the neurophysiological characteristics of humans. The metaverse of the future is not a place of escapism, but a space for expanding human potential, where technology serves as a tool for self-discovery and development. Our brain, this amazing organ, will continue to adapt, but we are obliged to give it the opportunity to do so naturally, without forcing evolution with artificial stimuli. In this balance lies the key to a prosperous coexistence with the technologies of tomorrow.